Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Reflecting, debriefing, and taking part in operational learning is a vehicle to identify new or emerging risks, monitoring trends, recommending remedial actions, and promoting the best practice, as well as achieving continuous improvement in service delivery and the safety of firefighters and frontline operators worldwide. At 6:03 hours on Thursday, the 1st of February 1996, Gwent Fire Brigade received the first of 8 fire calls to number 14 Zephaniah Way, Blaina Gwent. The brigade initially mobilised 1 fire appliance to the property, which was in an area categorised as C risk. However, the predetermined attendance was increased to 2 fire engines on receipt of a further fire call for the incident, which stated that children were inside the property. Hey folks, I wanted to jump in here and just share with you a really exciting update from our partner William Wood Watches. They are launching the first ever field watch collection. Now it's named Fearless, which firstly, I absolutely love, and this new collection is very different from anything they've ever launched before. However, you will see that they've managed to maintain some of the signature William Wood Watch elements. The big thing for me is that black fire hose. So they have got, the first ever time they've done this, the black fire hose strap and a really, really cool case back. So now the watches are available in 3 colors this time. These are red, orange, which is my favorite, and the yellow. Each watch features those straps that are made up from repurposed black fire hose. That stuff looks the absolute bee's knees, guys. They've never done that one before. So go and take a look at that. And they've also got a textured dial to represent charcoal. You know, I mean, honestly, I never know how they're going to keep going deeper with this. Every time they do, I'm like, where are they getting this from? But I know where they're getting it from, because they're speaking to the boots on the ground. They're speaking to you, they're speaking to me, they're speaking to firefighters and frontline operators and getting this, just these amazing insights. The creativity in this is amazing. Now, the cases come down in size from 41mm to 40mm. And another new thing is they've got a unique firefighter helmet visor case back. So flip it on the back. In fact, go over to the website and you'll see the photos. That visor case back, guys, it just looks absolutely incredible. Now, the watches are available to buy immediately, like right now, and they can be delivered within 24 hours in the UK and 48 hours from UPS collection in the US. The link to William Wood Watches is in the notes below this episode. You will not regret it. I am 100% putting this on my list. I'm going to be nagging them like crazy because I know you can pay in 3 stages as well. You haven't got to go in full whack on this. The new Fearless collection, William Wood Watches. Go check it out. The first fire appliance to arrive was confronted with a heavily smoke-logged house with no signs of visible fire. A team of 2 firefighters wearing breathing apparatus immediately entered the property and proceeded upstairs, where they found a young child. The firefighters rescued the child and re-entered the property to search for a second child reported to be inside. Whilst searching for the second child, the breathing apparatus team were caught in a backdraft which engulfed the whole house in flames at approximately 6:15. Attempts were made to rescue the breathing apparatus team by the remainder of the first crew and subsequently by the crew of the second appliance to attend the incident. These rescue attempts were severely hampered by the fire conditions in the house. The 2 members of the breathing apparatus team were eventually rescued from the house at 6:27 and 6:29 respectively. The 2 members of the breathing apparatus team caught in the backdraft and the young child whom they rescued were pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. There were no further persons trapped in the house. The investigation we're going to go through today has primarily concerned itself with the health and safety issues around the incident raised and related to the firefighters who attended. The performance of the breathing apparatus sets and the fire kit worn by the breathing apparatus team are subject to separate reports carried out by the Health and Safety Executive, Fire Brigade Union, and others on behalf of Gwent Fire Brigade. Some conclusions are made in the report that we're going to go through, and these are going to cover the design of the house, the training of the officer in charge and the crews attending the incident, the breathing apparatus procedures adopted at the incident, and the initial attendants mobilised to the incident. The ability of the breathing apparatus team to leave the property immediately following the backdraft was prevented in part by the inward opening inner porch door jamming on the hose reel, which they had taken into the house on their initial entry. There were also found to be deficiencies in the training of the initial crew attending, in the recognition of indicators of the potential backdraft, and in the training of the officer in charge in risk assessment and the control factors which could have been put into operation to minimise the risk of the breathing apparatus team caught in the backdraft. The procedures laid down in Technical Bulletin 189. for the setting up of Stage 1 BA engine control were not followed prior to entry of the first BA crew, due to the decision taken to attempt to snatch rescue on the arrival of the first appliance. Furthermore, an emergency team could not be provided with the resources initially mobilized. As part of the investigation into the fatal accident progressed, it was found that limitations in terms of personnel and attendance leading up to the occurrence of the backdraft and during the initial rescue attempts had major bearing on the outcome of the incident. Some of the following conclusions were made. The action of the inner glazed porch door jamming closed on the hose reel taken by the BA crew prevented them from exiting the property by their entry route. According to their means of egress from the risk area, in line with the duty placed on the employers so to Section 2(2)(d) of the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974 was not maintained. The crews attending the incident had not been provided with a specific structured training in how to recognise the indicators of a potential backdraft and the tactics to reduce the risk of a backdraft occurring. Training in terms of lectures in ventilation required under either the quarterly retained firefighter drill program or the whole-time firefighter training program operating in Gwent at the time provided the crews with little information on backdraft and was not, in the case of retained firefighters, supported by any references to bibliography to be used in the preparation of lectures. There was no practical training given to crews in backdraft recognition or firefighting techniques. The officer in charge of the initial attendance was not in a position to carry out a suitable and sufficient risk assessment of the dangers to his initial BA crew due to inadequate training in regard to recognition indicators of a potential backdraft. Consequently, he would not have been in a position to instigate appropriate preventative and protective measures to minimise the risk to the BA crew. The suggested procedures laid down in Technical Bulletin 189 regard the setting up of Stage 1 BA engine control prior to committing BA wearers to the risk area. Do not take into account the moral pressure on firefighters to act quickly when an initial attendance at an incident such as this is faced with a snatch rescue situation. This can and does lead to Stage 1 BA engine control being set up after the BA crew has been committed, with consequent room for mistakes to be made in recording procedures for the time of entry of that BA crew. The requirement for BA emergency teams to be established when Stage 1 BA engine control is in operation only if personnel resources permit has implications for the weight of attack initially mobilised to the incident. An initial mobilisation of 2 fire appliances to the incident at 14 Zephaniah Way would have provided the personnel resources necessary to establish a BA emergency team at the incident prior to the backdraft occurring. This would have then facilitated a faster committal of BA personnel to effect the rescue of the firefighters that were then caught in the backdraft. The recommended minimum attendances and minimum attendance times, as laid down in the 1985 CFBAC report on the standards of fire cover, are weighted more in the favour of limiting the spread of fire as opposed to ensuring that the safety of firefighters making up the first attendance at these incidents is not jeopardised by the initial mobilisation of insufficient resources. In the case of this incident, an initial mobilisation of 2 appliances on receipt of the first call for the incident would have provided an additional crew at the fire 1 minute and 37 seconds before the backdraft occurred. This additional crew could have begun firefighting or venting duties prior to the recommittal of the Blaina BA crew who were caught in the backdraft. The second appliance could also have provided a BA emergency team. Now on to the incident narrative. At 6:03 and 19 seconds on Thursday the 1st of February 1996, British Telecom connected an emergency call to Gwent Fire Brigade Control. Control into the details on the fire brigade mobilising system and matched the address with 1 fire appliance predetermined attendance based on the information given by the caller. Control operated the turnout system for Blaina Fire Station at 6:04 hours and 20 seconds. Personnel from Bravo 03, on call from their homes, responded to their alert as and proceeded to Blaina Fire Station. The teleprinter message at the station stated, "Incident type house, 14 Zephaniah Way, Blaina, with an incident number of 00547. Leading firefighter 1 was the first to arrive at Blaina Fire Station and dressed in his fire kit. He informed Sub-Officer 1 of the details of the call from the teleprinter message, and the fire appliance was booked mobile. There were 6 riders on the fire appliance. Sub-Officer 1 was the officer in charge, leading firefighter driving, firefighter Kevin Lane as breathing apparatus team leader, and firefighter Stephen Griffin as breathing apparatus wearer 2. Also present were firefighter 2 and firefighter 1, whose names will not be shared. The crew began donning fire kit, with firefighter Lane donning a breathing apparatus communication set and firefighter Griffin donning the other BA set. Firefighter 1 and the last crew member were to arrive on station and consequently took up the riding positions next to the offside crew cab door. Control then confirmed that Bravo 031 that all persons reported accounted for at this address. The water ladder turned out from the fire station and proceeded to Zephaniah Way at 6:09 hours and 7 seconds. Brigade Control received a third emergency call stating that the whole house is nearly gone. You'll have to look sharp. There's 1 kiddie left inside. Control confirmed that there was a child left inside the building, and then Control acted on this new information by mobilising a second fire appliance to the incident. The next nearest fire station was Bravo 02, and Control operated the turnout system for this station at 6:09 hours and 58 seconds. Personnel from Abertilly Fire Station on call from their homes responded to their alerters and proceeded to Abertilly Fire Station. The teleprinter message at the station stated, "House fire, persons reported." As the fire appliance approached the incident, the crew observed thick, dense smoke coming from the house. Leading Firefighter 1 stated that "We've got something here," and recalls being waved on by a member of the public on entering Zephaniah Way. The fire appliance had to drive through thick smoke issuing from number 14, which was across the road and drifting into their approach. On arrival, the crew dismounted the fire appliance, and leading Firefighter 1 applied the vehicle handbrake and engaged the pump. He got the BA board and took it to the rear of Bravo 031. Firefighters Lane and Griffin proceeded to the front door of number 14 and breathing apparatus, and Firefighter 1 ran out the hose reel from the offside rear locker to the front door, pulling off a large bite of hose off the drum. As Firefighter 1 dismounted from the fire appliance, on the offside closest to the house, he observed the property to be heavily smoke-logged. The front door was open with large quantities of black smoke issuing from it. The lounge window was intact, but black with the lounge heavily smoke-logged. The first floor window was also black with smoke logging to the front bedroom. Firefighter 1 believes that this window was also intact, however he did not observe any flames at this point. And Sub-Officer 1 observed large quantities of smoke coming from the property and from under the eaves. A large crowd had gathered in the road on the arrival of Bravo 031, estimated at over 20 persons by the crew. A member of the public informed Sub-Officer 1 that there were children upstairs in the bedroom of the house. Sub-Officer 1 proceeded to the front door where Firefighter Lane and Griffin had already become self-contained. He confirmed that there were children upstairs in the bedroom. He assisted Firefighter Lane to fasten his helmet, and Firefighter 1 assisted Firefighter Griffin with his helmet. The BA team then entered the house. First Firefighter Lane wearing the communications set, and then Firefighter Griffin. They took the hose reel with them to proceed upstairs. Firefighter 1 remained at the front door, and it is estimated that the BA crew made this entry into 14 Zephaniah Way at approximately 6:11 hours. Leading Firefighter 1 had placed the BA board at the rear of Bravo 031. He had opened the tank to pump valve and set the pump throttle. He was past the triple extension ladder by Firefighter 2, which he threw onto the front garden. He observed Firefighter Lane and Firefighter Griffin entering the front door of the property in BA with a hose reel. At this point, Sub-Officer 1 instructed leading Firefighter 1 to send an assistance message to Control. Make pumps 2 BA, 1 hose reel in use. Persons reported. Several members of the public were shouting that there was fire in the rear of the premises. Having climbed down from the roof of the fire appliance after passing the triple extension ladder to the leading Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2 was ordered to take a hose reel to the rear of the property to make an attack on the fire. Firefighter 2 ran out a hose reel the near side rear locker and proceeded with it around the back of the house in the terrace. Within 1 or 2 minutes of making their initial entry, Firefighter Lane and Firefighter Griffin re-emerged from the front door of the property carrying a small child. They handed the child to Sub-Officer 1, who placed it on the ground outside. Firefighter 1 felt for the children's carotid artery, but could not detect a pulse. Sub-Officer 1 removed his helmet and immediately started mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on the child. The child appeared to cough and stir whilst resuscitation was taking place, and Firefighter Lane, who was standing with Firefighter Griffin outside the front door whilst resuscitation was taking place, broke the seal of the BA face mask with the intention of providing fresh air to the child. Firefighter 1 stated that they should move the child away from the house, as there were still quantities of smoke issuing from the front door. The child was carried to the pavement at the front of the house and laid on a coat. Sub-Officer 1 ordered Firefighter 1 to get the resuscitator from the appliance. Firefighter 1 got the resuscitator and returned to the child. He turned the resuscitator on and helped with the resuscitation. Hey folks, just wanted to jump in with a quick piece around firefighter health and well-being. Now, we get a lot of messages and emails into the podcast around firefighter health and fitness, whether you are trying to join the fire service and pass them tricky fitness tests, if you are currently serving, or if you are coming up to that next chapter of your life, retiring from the emergency services. We get so many different questions around it. So in partnership with Fitness for the Frontline, we have come up with a series of guidance and programs specifically designed to reflect the physical elements of the role of a firefighter. So whether it's carrying an LPP across an overgrown field, lifting a ladder above your head under running it, or wrestling with cutting gear for 30 plus minutes at some kind of complicated RTC, our bodies are required to lift, push, and carry objects in very specific circumstances. That is effectively what Fitness on the Frontline focuses on, as well as the longer term aspects of overall health and wellness for our firefighters. There are focuses around strength endurance, and overall conditioning, all achievable and relevant to our roles. Now, we are definitely not about to be smashing out world records or getting that beach body ready in 6 weeks rubbish. The systems and programs that we put in place are adjusted for people's current fitness levels, and they're not a prescriptive way or a one-size-fits-all BS. We also take into consideration all the fitness testing for initial application and also for current firefighters who want to maintain and progress their fitness levels. It is very likely for myself personally that I'm still going to be a firefighter when I'm 60 plus, so longevity in the role is really important to me, and I know it is for so many people out there. The system has a built-in ability to adjust easily depending on the equipment you have available, your fatigue levels, or if you're coming off busy ass night shifts and you haven't got a lot of time to work out. You can record your results, log your weights, your body measurements. We've got all the facilities to do that. The system is yours to use how you want to train. We've taken all the fluff and the gimmicks and the BS away from most of the rubbish that you see out there, and this is designed by experienced operational firefighters and qualified people, including myself, with members of the team available to contact throughout the time you are within us in the program. If you ever get stuck, if you're starting to struggle, and also to celebrate those wins and achievements with you. It all starts with no obligation, 7 days worth of the programming, absolutely free. So whether you're joining, serving, or looking at the next chapter in your life, have a glance in the link for the podcast. Fitness for the Frontline is designed by firefighters for firefighters. Now back to the show. Firefighter 1 checked the child's carotid artery again and detected a weak pulse. Whilst assisting with resuscitation of the child, Firefighter 1 was side onto the house and turned slightly towards it. He observed that smoke was still hammering out of it, with no flames visible. Sub-Officer 1 also observed that the conditions in number 14 at this point had not changed from when Bravo 031 had arrived. Leading Firefighter 1, having passed the assistance message, returned to the BA control board at the rear of Bravo 031 to enter details of the BA wearers. He was then instructed by Sub-Officer 1 to confirm with control that an ambulance was en route to the incident. Having passed this message, Leading Firefighter 1 dismounted from the fire appliance and begun to make his way to the rear of Bravo 031 to complete his entry control board. Firefighter Lane had become self-contained again by this point and re-entered the house of Firefighter Griffin as members of the public were shouting that there were more children in the house. Having got to the rear of the terrace, Firefighter 2 was told by a man that there was an old lady hanging out of the upstairs window of the house next to the house that was on fire. Firefighter 2 investigated but could not see anyone at the first floor windows of number 16. He returned to the front of the house and observed that the house was rapidly becoming smoke-logged. Firefighter 2 attempted to raise the occupants by hammering on the front door, which was shut by the catch, and shouting. Front door of number 16 was immediately next to the front door of number 14. It is estimated that Firefighter Lane and Griffin made their second entry to number 14 at 6:15 and 30 seconds. They proceeded through the front door and up the stairs. At approximately 6:15 and 45 seconds, the ground and first floor of the house burst into flames, engulfing the two firefighters. Leading Firefighter 1 had just completed his message to control, reference attendance of the ambulance, had dismounted from the fire appliance and was making his way to the rear of Bravo 031 on the near side when he heard a whoosh sound from the direction of the house. Firefighter 1 was assisting with resuscitation of the child at the front of the property. He also heard a whoosh from the house and turned his head sideways to look at the property. He observed that the whole house was engulfed in flames. The front door was open, but he did not observe the position of the inner glazed porch door. Firefighter 1 observed that there was little smoke coming from the front of the property compared with when he observed the house seconds earlier, whilst returning from the fire appliance with the resuscitator. Sub-Officer 1, who was with Firefighter 1, heard a whoosh and saw the inner glazed porch door close with force. Firefighter 2 at this point was attempting to raise the occupants from the front of number 16 when he heard screaming coming from the doorway of number 14. He shouted to the crew that he could hear them screaming. On hearing the shout from Firefighter 2, leading Firefighter 1 ran towards the front door of number 14. He observed one of the BA crew through the glass panel inner porch door. The firefighter was at the bottom of the stairs, banging at the inner porch door, and was on fire. The inner porch door jammed and closed on the hose reel tubing, which the BA crew had taken in with them on their initial entry. As leading Firefighter 1 was about to kick the door, he saw a burning firefighter fall through the doorway at the base of the stairs, into the lounge. Leading Firefighter 1 then kicked in the bottom of the glass panel of the door to try and reach the firefighter, but could not see him. Leading Firefighter 1 then ran to Bravo 031 to get a BA set. From his position on the pavement, Firefighter 1 heard Firefighter 2 shouting from the front of number 16 and then heard leading Firefighter 1 shout, "We've got 2 men down." Sub-Officer 1 asked Firefighter 1 what they were shouting, and Firefighter 1 replied that leading Firefighter 1 reckoned that they had 2 men down. Sub-Officer 1 ordered Firefighter 1 to get a BA set on. Sub-Officer 1 ran to the fire appliance to send an assistance message. Leading Firefighter 1 ran to the front door of number 14, donning his BA set as he ran. He was then joined by Firefighter 1 in BA. Leading Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 1 got self-contained. Leading Firefighter 1 kicked open the inner porch door and pulled the hose reel tubing out of the door. Having transmitted the assistance message, Sub-Officer 1 did not wait for an acknowledgement from control. He ran to the front of the property where leading Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 1 had managed to force open the inner porch and had made an entry in BA to attempt to get Firefighter Lane and Griffin out of the burning house. Leading Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 1 had managed to get into the hall of the base of the stairs, just past the inner porch door. They were crouched down due to the intense heat. Leading Firefighter 1 said, "They're in there," indicating towards the lounge. A boot was visible just inside the lounge door. The lounge itself was an inferno. The heat was described by both Leading Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 1 as being unbelievable. Leading Firefighter 1 directed a hose reel jet into the lounge, into the area that he had seen the firefighter fall. He then reached forward into the lounge and tried to pull the firefighter out by the boot, but was unable to move him. Leading Firefighter 1 gave the hose reel to Firefighter 1, who sprayed the hose reel over him as he tried to make an entry into the lounge, but was beaten back by the intense heat. Firefighter 1 in turn tried to make an entry into the lounge whilst Leading Firefighter 1 sprayed him with the hose reel, but he was also beaten back by the heat. Neither Leading Firefighter 1 or Firefighter 1 could see any further into the lounge other than the immediate lounge door area. Leading Firefighter 1 then alternately sprayed the hose reel into the area of the firefighter and then towards the ceiling in an attempt to reduce the temperature in the lounge sufficiently to allow them to enter. Firefighter 2, having shouted to the crew that he could hear screaming, continued in his attempt to raise the occupants of number 16. He asked Sub-Officer 1, who was now at the door to number 14, if he should break the door down. Sub-Officer 1 said yes. Firefighter 2 attempted to kick the door in without success and ran to the fire appliance to get a sledgehammer. He broke the door in with a sledgehammer, however he could not get into the house as a security chain was fitted. He returned to the fire appliance to get some bolt croppers in order to cut the security chain. Having supervised the entry of the second BA crew, Sub-Officer 1 initially assisted Firefighter 2 in attempting to make entry into number 16. He then returned to Bravo 031 and contacted Control to find out the estimated time of arrival of the fire appliance requested in his makeup message. Bravo 021 turned onto the street at 6:19. As Sub-Officer 1 was requesting the ETA from Control. As Sub-Officer 2 dismounted from the fire appliance, he was met by Sub-Officer 1, who informed him that he had 2 men in the property involved in fire and that an old lady was still next door and needed to be rescued. A BA crew consisting of a Firefighter 4 and Firefighter 5 had rigged in BA in the cab of Bravo 021. Sub-Officer 2 detailed the Bravo 021 BA crew to get self-contained and effect a rescue of the older lady in number 16. Firefighter 6 took over the BA board at the rear of Bravo 031. Whilst Bravo 021 BA crew got self-contained, they proceeded to the door of number 16, but were redirected at that point by Sub-Officer 1. He informed them that he had 2 men down inside number 14 and indicated to Bravo 021 BA crew that they should enter 14 and rescue them. Firefighter 2, meanwhile, had cut the security chain on the bolt croppers, entered the house and found the occupant leaning over the sink in the kitchen. 2 members of the public had followed him into the kitchen, and Firefighter 2, the occupant, and the members of the public left the premises by the front door. Sub-Officer 2 began to make a recce of the premises. On going around the rear of the premises, he observed that there were large quantities of smoke and flames issuing from the rear, ground, and first floor windows of the property. Firefighter 6 completed the entry details of Firefighter 4 and Firefighter 5 on the BA board at the rear of Bravo 031, and then approached Sub-Officer 1 to get further information and details on the initial cruise. The Bravo 021 BA crew, Firefighters 4 and 5, could see a BA team just through the doorway of number 14. They hesitated for a moment as the BA crew did not seem to be in difficulty but rather appeared to be crouched down at the base of the stairs, directing a hose reel jet into the lounge. They then entered the doorway of the house and started to pull Leading Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 1 out of the house. Leading Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 1 pushed Firefighters 4 and 5 off as the Bravo 021 crew tried to pull them out of the house. They stated that they did not need rescuing, but it was the crew in the lounge, Firefighters 4 and 5, also entered the area at the base of the stairs. Firefighter 4 reached into the lounge and caught hold of the firefighter's boot. Assisted by another member of the BA crew, tried to pull the firefighter out of the lounge but could not move him. Firefighter 4 thought that the firefighter must be jammed against something in the lounge and managed to get into the lounge just past the door. Firefighter 4 was crouched very low and reached forward, feeling his way up the firefighter. The heat was extremely intense. Firefighter 4 noted that the firefighter was lying face down as he felt up his body. The firefighter did not have a BA set on, and he could feel bare shoulders. As Firefighter 4 tried to lift the firefighter, the heat became overpowering, and he retreated to the base of the stairs, shouting, "Put the hose reel on me, I think I'm on fire." Station Officer 2, who had been mobilised to the incident, booked in attendance at 6:23 hours. On his arrival, he had been briefed by Sub-Officer 2. He proceeded to the front door of number 14 and urged the BA crews to get the 2 firefighters out as quickly as possible. Firefighter 5, who was at the base of the stairs, became aware of the muffled sound of a DSU sounding in the lounge. The Bravo 021 BA crew asked for a jet and a line of 45mm hose, which had been run out after the arrival of Bravo 021 passed them almost immediately. Firefighter 4 took a jet and turned into a spray, directing it into the lounge. Having reduced the temperature, Firefighter 4 closed the branch down, and he and Firefighter 5 made an entry into the lounge. Firefighter 4 lifted the firefighter under the arms into the kneeling position, and with the help of Firefighter 5, manhandled him through the lounge door, assisted by leading Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 1. The firefighter was taken outside and laid on the front garden by the fire service personnel. The BA set was not on the firefighter, later identified as Firefighter Lane. As Firefighter 5 was assisting in the rescue of the first firefighter, he became aware of the position of the second, who was lying along the lounge wall with his head near the lounge door to the wall and his feet towards the kitchen at the rear of the house. As the remainder of the BA crews were removing the first firefighter, Firefighter 5 began to drag the second firefighter towards the lounge door by the arms. At one point, Firefighter 5 lost grip when one of the firefighter's gloves came off. Firefighter 5 was rejoined by Firefighter 4, and together they manhandled the second firefighter through the lounge door, where they were assisted by leading Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 1, and other brigade personnel to carry him into the garden. Firefighter 4 was also aware of the sound of the DSU sounding in the lounge during the rescue of the second firefighter, although the DSU remained in the lounge after his rescue. A BA sit was still attached to this firefighter, later identified as Firefighter Griffin. Having assisted in the rescue of Firefighters Lane and Griffin, the BA crew were ordered to re-enter number 14 in order to continue with firefighting duties. On re-entering the area of the base of the stairs, Firefighter 4 became aware of the sound of a BA low-pressure warning whistle sounding. Both he and Firefighter 5 checked their gauges. However, the cylinder contents remaining in both sets was above that at which the whistle would normally be expected to sound. On further investigation, they discovered that the sound of the low-pressure warning whistle was coming from the area in the lounge where one of the firefighters had been found lying. Fire Appliance Bravo 041 mobilized to the incident on receipt of the BA emergency message from Station Officer 2, arrived at the incident at 6:40. A BA crew consisting of Firefighters 9 and 8 was committed to the property at 6:41. Having proceeded through the lounge to attack the fire in the kitchen at the rear of the property, the BA crew observed that an area of the kitchen ceiling had burnt through and some of the first floor joists were visible. The BA crew continued fighting and was subsequently ordered to go upstairs to make an attack on the fire on the first floor level. Having got to the head of the stairs, they observed that an area of flooring at the head of the stairs above the kitchen had burnt through. Firefighting continued at the incident, however the crew subsequently experienced difficulties in locating water supplies. This was due to a covering of snow and ice on the ground obscuring the pavement's sighted hydrants. The stop message was sent from the incident at 8:12. As part of the report and subsequent investigation, it was established that the fire originated in a quantity of clothing located in the kitchen to the rear of the premises. At 5:48, the occupier of the premises awakened to find the property smoke-logged and discovered the fire in the kitchen. Before leaving the premises, she closed the doors linking the lounge to the kitchen. This effectively sealed the fire in the kitchen area, the rear door leading from the kitchen and the kitchen window both being shut. The fire within the kitchen rapidly developed due to the easily combustible materials and an adequate initial air supply, plus a quantity of clothing and the children's toys, which were also located in the area. The fire quickly reached a stage where the air supply to the compartment was restricted. The oxygen in the air of the compartment was being used more quickly than it could be replaced. The net effect was a progressive lowering of the concentration of oxygen in the gases and the compartment, combined with an increase in temperature in the compartment, resulting in the creation of a flammable gas within the compartment, the creation of a positive pressure within the kitchen compartment, which effectively forced the flammable gases through the existing apertures to other compartments in the building. The above conditions created a situation where the entire property quickly became filled with a mixture of flammable gases. At approximately 6:05, due to the extreme heat generated in the kitchen compartment, the UPVC window failed, resulting in the fire now being supplied with oxygen. This resulted in a sudden increase in the ferocity of the fire and flames existing at the window. The heat generated within the kitchen compartment at ceiling level had been estimated to be in the region of 1,000 degrees Celsius. This had the effect of raising the temperature in adjoining compartments. A significant factor at this stage of development was that the carpets in the room above the fire and on the staircase themselves reached temperatures at which the fabric gave off quantities of flammable gas. These then spread through the property, adding to the existing flammable atmosphere. At 6:10, the situation within the premises could consist of a severe fire still contained within the kitchen, but with the remainder of the premises being heavily smoke-logged throughout, with oxygen being supplied through 2 points: the failed kitchen window and the open front door. All other doors and windows at this stage were intact. This situation continued until around 6:15 when the fire broke through the ceiling of the kitchen into the first floor rear bedroom, resulted in a sudden deflagration. This deflagration moving through the property from the first floor to ground floor, resulting in the whole property being involved in a fierce, sustainable fire. The terminology for this phenomenon is often referred to as a flashover, taken from the definition stated in BS 4422 in 1987. Flashover: sudden transition to a state of total surface involvement in a fire of combustible materials within a compartment. British Standard 4422, 1987, Section 13. A quick differentiation between flashovers and backdrafts. Firstly, flashover. In a compartment fire, there can be a stage where the total thermal radiation from a fire plume, hot gases, and hot compartment boundaries causes the radiative ignition of all exposed combustible surfaces within that compartment. This sudden and sustained transition of a growing fire to a fully developed fire is termed as a flashover. This comes from the Manual of Firemanship. A backdraft is where limited ventilation can lead to a fire in a compartment producing fire gases containing significant proportions of partial combustion products and unburnt pyrolysis products. If these accumulate, then the admission of air when an opening is made to the compartment can lead to a sudden deflagration. The deflagration, moving through the compartment and out of the opening, is a backdraft. Finally, there's what can be termed as a delayed backdraft. Now, a dangerous situation can occur when a fire in a compartment has almost died out. When the door is opened, air flows into an explosive mixture, but nothing happens because there is now no immediate source of ignition. If the firefighters now enter the compartment, their activities, for example turning over, may expose a source of ignition, initiating a delayed backdraft. The situation can be further complicated if significant amounts of the flammable gases in the compartment have managed to escape into surrounding areas. Areas other than the closed compartment could then contain explosive atmospheres, waiting for a source of ignition. Following the delayed backdraft, both the ground and first floor of this property were involved in a sustained fierce fire where the temperatures were described as being very extreme. As referenced earlier, the temperature within the lounge kitchen area at the time of the rescue attempts would have been in the region of 1,000 degrees Celsius, thus effectively making an entry impossible until the main jet was got to work. Both the 2nd Blaina BA crew and the Artillery BA crew experienced great difficulty in making an entry into the lounge area in order to effect a rescue of firefighters Lane and Griffin. The house was classed as having a normal fire loading for a domestic property. However, the presence of approximately 50 video cassettes in the lounge would have added considerably to the heat generated once the lounge had become fully involved in fire. As part of the investigation into the construction itself, the conclusion found that the action of the inner glazed porch door jamming closed on the hose reel taken in by the BA crew prevented them from exiting the property by their entry route. Accordingly, their means of egress from the risk area, in line with the duty placed on the employers in Section 2 of the Health and Safety Work Act 1974, was not maintained. Some points follow from the summary of the Brigade Fire Investigation Report. The officer in charge of the incident number 14 requested the attendance of the Fire Brigade Investigation Team at 6:41 hours on the 1st of February 1996. The team arrived at the incident at 7:08 and commenced their investigation following extinguishment of the fire. The Fire Investigation Report, which forms part of the Brigade Accident Investigation Report, stated that 95% of the property and contents were totally destroyed by fire. There were signs of structural damage to the wall above the kitchen window and the flooring of the rear first floor bedroom that had fell through to the ground floor. The remainder of the property was severely damaged by heat and smoke. The property had contained normal domestic furniture and fittings. There were no accelerants of any quantity stored other than which would have been found in a normal domestic household, such as polish, hairspray and air freshener. From the investigation into damage sustained to the property and the witness statements taken following the incident, it was ascertained that the point of ignition was the kitchen. The approximate time of ignition was believed to be 5:37. The development of the fire was established before the failure of the kitchen window, allowing the ingress of fairly strong wind to fan the seat of the fire. As with so many of the case studies, debriefs and investigations we do on the Firefighters Podcast, so many of them result in the loss of life, either from members of the public or from our service personnel. So we're just going to cover the details of the firefighters that were lost at this incident. Kevin Richard Thomas Lane was born on the 27th of October 1963. He joined Gwent Fire Brigade as a retained firefighter on the 12th of October 1989 and was stationed at Blaina. In December 1989, he undertook his basic firefighters course and successfully completed his initial BA course on March 1990. In January 92 and June 94, he successfully completed BA refresher courses internally within the brigade. Kevin also attended the Fire Service College in Morton-on-the-Marsh in March 92 on a retained leading firefighters course and had subsequently completed the retained junior officer A, B and C courses by November 94. He leaves a partner and one son aged 10 years at the time of his death. Stephen Paul Griffin was born on the 10th of November 1953. He joined Gwent Fire Brigade as a retained firefighter on the 15th of October 1990 and was stationed at Blaina. In October 90, he undertook his basic firefighters course and successfully completed his initial BA course in the March of 91. In January 92 and June 94, he also successfully completed his refresher courses, run internally by the brigade. Stephen leaves a wife and 2 children, a daughter aged 17 and a son aged 20 at the time of his death. A post-mortem examination carried out on the firefighters on the 2nd of February 1996 recorded the cause of death in both cases as being severe pulmonary congestion and edema due to smoke inhalation. There's a few training areas we just want to cover as part of this debrief. Now, there would undoubtedly be a moral pressure on the initial crew attending the incident to attempt a snatch rescue from the house before undertaking any firefighting duties, given the circumstances with which they were presented on arrival. This they did successfully, notwithstanding the considerable risk this course of action placed the BA crew in when they were made initial entry. The risk was minimised to a point by the wearing of breathing apparatus sets and the fire kit, and by the fact that the crew took a hose reel with them into the house, in line with their training. The officer in charge also sent an assistance message to control to provide the additional resources in terms of manpower and equipment which it was apparent to him would be required for firefighting and safety procedures to be put in place, given the priority of action decided upon. Notwithstanding the fact that several indicators of a potential backdraft were present on the arrival at the incident, it would be unrealistic to suggest that the initial crew attending would have done anything other than to enter the house on arrival to search for casualties. The question which the incident poses is whether anything could have been done in the initial crew attending to minimise the potential for the backdraft to occur, or to reduce the risk to firefighters entering the house, given the constraints in terms of manpower under which they were operating. The Home Office Fire Research and Development Group commissioned a survey into backdraft to be undertaken, following concerns raised at the level of knowledge amongst firefighters about this phenomenon. The result of the survey were published in the mid-1994 by the Home Office under the title, A Survey of Backdraft. The report describes a survey of current knowledge of backdraft and considers needs for further research and the implications for the training of firefighters. The management summary in the report describes the conditions which may lead to a backdraft and the need for firefighters to be able to identify these conditions. The summary also states that there is currently no practical training given to firefighters regarding backdrafts in the UK. This was published in 1994. In closing, and given this incident took place in February 1996, we're going to cover over some of the latest national guidance on domestic dwelling fires. Firstly is incident information. It's important to identify the number of and last known position of any occupants in need of rescue or assistance to evacuate. Consider using thermal imaging equipment for scanning and carrying out the scene survey. You should identify the location of the fire, materials involved, and any potential for flashover or backdraft. Also consider the stability, construction type, size, age, and maintained condition of the building. Identify any utilities, including renewable energy supplies, and locate their isolation points. Consider the occupancy, the use, and the contents of the property involved. Identify any security features that may comprise safe access to and egress from the scene of operations, and continually monitor and assess the fire development for signs and symptoms of escalation. Consider potential causes of the fire, deliberate or accidental ignition, and illegal activities that may have taken place. Assess the status of compartmentation, fire doors, means of escape, and protected shafts. Consider the original use of the building and any subsequent structural or cosmetic alterations. Identify the location of basements, chimneys, voids, ducting, cavities, and concealed areas. And finally, identify the presence of effectiveness of fixed installations and, where appropriate, take control of their operation. With regard to resources, ensure you request sufficient and appropriate additional resources in a timely fashion. Request medical support for emergency responders if required. Consider requesting aerial or special appliances to reduce the risk and demand on resources. Secure sufficient firefighting media to enable the fire to be fully extinguished. Confirm with fire control that required specialist resources and specialist advice have been requested or notified, such as police, ambulance, or environmental agencies. Remember, you can always call for these assistance messages and send them back if you don't need them. You're better off calling for them and not needing them. You should identify a secondary water supply in case of increased demand or failure. Request support for people affected by the incident from a local authority, partner agencies, local resilience forums, or police family liaison officers. Consider requesting advice on structural integrity if you have concerns. This can be from the local authority building control teams or your own service search and rescue tactical advisors. You should request the attendance of the police and utility supply if illegal activity involving utility systems is identified or suspected, such as illicit drugs factories. It's important to think about the conditions of the fire and potential spread, such as thermal radiation. Position your vehicles anticipating fire development, thermal radiation, collapse, smoke, and other hazards. Consider whether a breach of compartment would spread fire to another room, floor, area, or an entire building. Use the appropriate extinguishing media, method, techniques, and equipment. Put in place covering and/or safety jets according to the identified risks, and ensure that firefighting PPE is worn in accordance with the service risk assessment. Consider the effects of wind and ventilation on smoke and fire gases when positioning firefighting personnel. Consider using tactical ventilation to improve conditions and maintain access and egress routes. You should consider the impact of the smoke plume on downward life risk, road users, and other transport networks, such as nearby roads, trains, and neighbouring properties. Ensure that all personnel wear a type of RPE identified by the service risk assessment procedures and training. Consider employing a combination of direct firefighting and gas cooling to control conditions inside, and consider the isolation of containment and fire compartment. Brief crews to carry out self-protection, door entry, and compartment firefighting techniques. Do not make an assumption. Ensure that you develop, implement, and maintain a ventilation strategy. Monitor the effects of the ventilation strategy and adjust if necessary. Consider the flow path of the smoke, the fire gases, and the potential for fire spread. Ensure covering jets are in place before creating exhaust vents, and consider leaving unopened windows closed to prevent unnecessary spread of smoke and fire gas. Isolate utilities that may impact fire development and secure against reconnection. Consider isolating the power supplies, and consider the impact on any critical systems. Identify any sources of renewable energy generation, such as photovoltaic cells, also referred to as solar panels and/or wind power. Ensure that PPE is worn in accordance with the service risk assessment for all live utilities. If you do believe it's an unstable structure, then assess and continuously monitor the structure for signs of collapse. Evaluate and monitor the potential footprint of collapse and debris. Which direction is it going to go in if it does go? Consider the impact of the fire of firefighting on structural elements and structural flames. Consider the effects of the fire's duration and intensity and firefighting activity on the structural materials. This means think about if it's a steel construction or timber construction, and the duration from which a fire and the intensity of which can continue before the structural integrity is affected. Consider requesting advice on structural integrity from local authority building control, or request your urban search and rescue TACAD. Conditions and electrics vary in different properties, but you should identify and communicate the presence of lightweight conduit, trunking, or cable fixings. Identify loose cables and consider using alternative access or egress routes. Perhaps even consider securing or carrying out a controlled release of the cables. Ensure that cable cutting equipment is available at the incident where cables may cause entanglement. On many occasions you'll find these fitted to the BA sets themselves. With all of these considerations in place, remember our objectives. Maintain the safety of all personnel, other responders and the public. To save life and reduce harm. And to extinguish the fire and eliminate any ignition sources. And use appropriate methods and equipment to contain polluting material to minimise their impact on the environment. With regard to our tactics, we should carry out any rescues or life-saving actions. Consider taking action to prevent a serious escalation of the incident. Develop and communicate a firefighting plan and ventilation strategy to all personnel. Put safety jets in place to protect firefighting teams and maintain safe access and egress. At the earliest opportunity, we should establish emergency arrangements appropriate to the type, size, and complexity of the incident. Finally, with regard to our operational tactics, we should gain access to the fire compartments and voids using safest and simplest methods. Consider the appropriate speed of intervention to limit the fire development itself. Select an appropriate firefighting method, e.g. cooling, smothering, starving, or interrupting. And select appropriate firefighting media, whether that be water, foam, dry powder, or CO2, as well as an appropriate firefighting technique, whether that be direct firefighting, fire breaks, or a controlled burn. And finally, select the equipment, whether that be an extinguisher, a hose reel, a main jet, or a cutting extinguisher. This brings us to the end of the incident debrief for 14 Zephaniah Way, Blaina Gwent, on the 1st of February 1996. We hope the lessons learned of this incident can be widely shared and learned from to avoid further tragedies of emergency services personnel in the future. Always be a student, never stop learning. All of us have the opportunity to continue and develop ourselves, myself included. So if you or your service has documentation or investigations into an incident that you'd like shared on the Firefighters Podcast, please send it into the Firefighters Podcast at gmail.com. so that we can share this information with the rest of the UK Fire and Rescue Service and our brothers and sisters all over the world to create safer, more effective firefighters and frontline personnel. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
The Firefighters Podcast is a global podcast seeking to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operators. Through a series of wide-ranging conversations celebrating those within our sector, we seek to encourage and support this incredible group of people. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield, and I speak with individuals from all walks of life who I sincerely believe can add value to or develop those who have chosen this life path. Please support your emergency services wherever you are in the world, and thank you for listening.